Hi, hello, excuse me, it's me, DJ Soulbutter. While I've been here on TikTok, I've been trying to listen to every single new album that comes out and review it for all of you, and I think so far, so good. And also, I'm trying to think of other forms of musically related content to put on here as well. And with my random top 10s that I've been doing here and there, I'd also like to do something that I like to call the Curious Case of. And for my first edition of this little series, I will be doing the Curious Case of Weezer. So let's start at the beginning, shall we? The year was 1994. What a year for music. And I think a lot of people were beginning to fold their flannel shirts and tuck them away in their drawers because we were starting to feel the beginning of the end when it came to the grunge era in music. And on May 10th, 1994, these four nerds showed up and pretty much changed everything. So in 1994, we got the Blue Album, a record that was produced by Rick Ocasek of the Cars, with monster hits like Buddy Holly, Say It Ain't So, incredible deep cuts like The World Has Turned and Left Me, Surf Wax America, In the Garage. This was, in my opinion, maybe one of the greatest debut records for any band in history, and it was just a perfectly well crafted power pop alternative rock album. An album that made me think, what could possibly be next for this band? What can they do to build upon something just so great, so influential? And it was kind of crazy that what followed this was basically a big middle finger to what they already established. So in 1996, we got the sophomore release, Pinkerton. A record, if you recall, was actually not very well received by critics or even fans for that matter, because this time around, this record was actually self-produced, and the result was a much more darker, louder, more abrasive sound. And ironically, if you ask most Weezer fans today, myself included, this is maybe your favorite Weezer record. Now, with the release of this album, touring kind of started to wane on them, the popularity dwindled, and then they just disappeared. So 5 years later, in 2001, Weezer did return with the Green Album, and Matt Sharp was no longer in the band. He was replaced by Mikey Welsh over here, and also returning was Rick Ocasek to produce. And what we got was a very slick, tight, pristine half hour of power pop. And I did miss some of the more gruff elements of Weezer's sound, but I still loved this album when it came out. I still think it's great to this day. And I also really love the genuine excitement of Weezer fans when they did return. It was really cool to see that they were still there and waiting and hoping for their return. And to me, this album is what established Weezer in rock history as a band of relevance. And it also let it be known that Weezer was definitely here to stay. Now, here's where things maybe got a little interesting, because for the fourth album, we got Maladroit, a record that I think a lot of Weezer fans felt like was the beginning of the end when it came to Weezer making great records. But personally, I actually thought this record was great, and I really enjoyed the more metal-inspired guitar riffs. Really fun songs like Dope Nose and Keep Fishing I thought were super catchy and super fun. And, this record really gets kind of lost in the shuffle when it comes to the history of this band, but I don't think it should have. I thought this was one of the highlights for this band and something that maybe people should go back to and give another listen because this was really good. Now, for me, this is when things started to fall apart because in 2005, we got Make Believe. And I vividly remember the first time I heard Beverly Hills, and I thought to myself, what the fuck are we doing right now? Because to this day, I still think that that's a terrible song. But there were some good tracks on here. Perfect Situation, Damage in Your Heart, The Other Way. There were some good songs. But for me, the 80s tinged influence nature of this record just didn't work. And this is when I was starting to become a little concerned. So the follow-up we got was the Red Album. To me, a record that was a pretty uneven mess. I mean, I did like songs like Dreamin' and The Greatest Man That Ever Lived. But on the flip side of the coin, you had Everybody Get Dangerous and basically the last three tracks on the album. And I thought to myself, well, this is probably the lowest that this band can get. Things can't get much worse, right? Wow, I was wrong. This was terrible. Holy shit. Yeah, this record, Ratitude, by the way, this record was basically Weezer trying to say, hey, we're still hip. We know what the kids like. Let's work with Dr. Luke. Let's have a song with Lil Wayne. This was just beyond terrible, beyond cringe. It made me sad when it came out. I didn't really understand the point or what they were truly going for. And this to me is the definitive beginning of the end, or maybe just the end of Weezer as we knew them. This was really bad. I hated it. And I tried to go back to it every once in a while to see maybe I was too harsh in my initial feelings for it. But every time I do, I'm like, nope, this sucked. Now, quickly following Raditude, we got Hurley, a record that I always felt like was kind of a makeup, like, we're sorry, we know that was bad, we're still Weezer, we're still here, trust us, this is going to be good. And I still felt like, do you actually care? Because just looking at the album cover, it was that random guy from Lost for some reason, and it felt like too little, too late, because these songs on this record were fine, but didn't really have any of the magic that Weezer was known for. Basically, at this point, it was kind of like, I don't know what to do with this band anymore. Now, after a little bit of a break, 4 years later, we got Everything Will Be Alright in the End. And this was the third and final record for Weezer that was produced by Ric Ocasek. And I recall that people did like this album. They thought it was pretty good. I was not really one of those people, because for me, this felt like Weezer cosplaying as the band they used to be. It just didn't feel like the same level of creativity and magic and influence that once made this band so incredibly special. And honestly, by this point, I had given up really having any true anticipation for what Weezer had to offer as a band. Now, I ended up being pretty shocked by what we got next. Because in 2016, we got the White Album. And man, I was really blown away by this. This was something that I did not see coming. This is the best record that they have released pretty much since Maladroit. These songs were catchy, they were fun. It almost felt like 1994 again, almost. And when I listened to this record, I was like, wow, Weezer's back. They found themselves. Nothing can ruin this. Never mind, we got Pacific Daydream. We're back to making hollow, forgettable power pop. This wasn't good. And again, I fooled myself into thinking things can't get any worse. Right? The Teal album. Let's make a covers record. Let's have some fun. Let's cover No Scrubs. Sure. Fine. But at the same time, fuck you. Quickly following up, we had the Black Album. And I feel like it's really unfortunate that for Weezer, this will forever be known as the Black Album, considering so many great records have that same moniker, Metallica, Jay-Z. And again, this record wasn't good. Just not good. I sound like a broken record. It's probably tiresome. I know. I'm sorry, but this also blew. And then in 2021, we got OK Human, a record that was definitely a risk, definitely a big pivot in sound. It was a record composed of chamber pop and baroque pop. And, I won't dump on this record. This was an interesting choice to make. It was an interesting risk to take. And for the most part, it did work. But at the same time, is this what I want from Weezer? Once again, probably not. And then finally, as of now, the last record from Weezer was Van Weezer. And this was another attempt, similar to Maladroit, to incorporate the more metal-influenced style guitar riffs to coincide with their power pop sound that they're known for. And this record was just, again, somewhat hollow, somewhat dull, and just not really memorable. Yeah. So yeah, that's my chronicling of the band Weezer. Feel free to give me your opinions on this band. Maybe you differ from mine. And also some artists and other bands that you'd like for me to do as far as this curious case of thing I'm trying to do. Anyway, thank you for watching. Peace, love, butter.